The end of World War I wasn't the end of suffering. It was just the beginning of a new struggle. World War I left more than 16 million dead, cities shattered and families broken. But when the war finally ended, peace didn't bring comfort. Instead, the world entered the interwar years, a time filled with poverty, fear, and disease. As nations struggled to rebuild, new threats began to rise, like political extremism and the seeds of future conflict. The scars of WWU shaped a generation, and the world would never be the same.
Europe was shattered. Millions of soldiers returned home with physical and mental scars. Entire towns were reduced to rubble. Families were torn apart, the so-called lost generation. There was deep grief and a search for meaning amid the ashes. Influenza swept across the globe in 1918 to 1919, killing over 50 million people, more than the war itself. The war may have ended, but human suffering had just begun. The 1920s brought some hope, the roaring 20s, but it was short-lived. In 1929, the Great Depression struck. Banks collapsed, industries failed, and millions lost their jobs and homes. In Germany, hyperinflation meant people carried cash in wheelbarrows to buy bread. In the United States, poverty and unemployment soared. Globally, economies crashed and survival became a daily struggle. If you don't like politics but still wonder how history repeats itself, then pay attention to the rise of extremism. In the aftermath of war and economic collapse, hope was in short supply. Across Europe, frustration and fear opened the door to radical ideas. In Italy, Benito Mussolini stormed onto the scene, promising order and greatness with his new ideology, fascism. His dramatic parades and fiery speeches swept the crowds. Over in Germany, Adolf Hitler seized the moment. He promised a return to glory and revenge for past humiliation. Desperate for change, many Germans listened. Hitler's Nazi party used propaganda, rallies, and intimidation to gain power, steering the country down a dark, dangerous path. Meanwhile, in the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin was consolidating his rule. He crushed opposition, orchestrated purges, and engineered famines that killed millions, all to cement his grip on power. The promise of a workers' utopia turned into a nightmare of fear and control. As these authoritarian regimes gained steam, democracies struggled. Economic chaos and political infighting made them seem weak and ineffective. The League of Nations, which was supposed to keep the peace, watched helplessly from the sidelines. This was a turning point, when hope gave way to extremism, and Europe began its march toward another catastrophe. Colonized nations, especially in Asia and Africa, suffered quietly. They had sent soldiers to fight in Europe's war, yet returned to chains of empire. In India, movements led by Gandhi demanded freedom. In China, warlords battled while Japan began its brutal invasion. From Algeria to Vietnam, voices of resistance grew. But colonial powers responded with repression, not reform.
The interwar period was one of lost hope. Refugees roamed borders and anti-Semitism spread. Political dissidents were jailed or executed. Children went hungry and entire populations lived in fear of war, hunger, or political persecution. Technology advanced, radios, cars, airplanes, but it could not cure the soul of a wounded world.
Appeasement failed. The world watched as Hitler marched into the Rhineland, Mussolini invaded Ethiopia, and civil war erupted in Spain. The warning signs were clear, but the world, still traumatized by the Great War, looked away. By 1939, humanity stood again on the brink of destruction. If your idea of peace is just silence, you're missing the point. Real peace means standing up for what's right, for everyone. The interwar years showed us that ignoring suffering only plants the seeds of future conflict. Let's not repeat those mistakes. Today, we remember the true cost of division, and commit to something better. Join hands for peace, dignity, and a world where everyone belongs. Because together, we can build a future that's truly just and truly peaceful.